Hey guys, I wanted to first come to you and thank you for watching the first part of the podcast, What's Going On with Curtis. And here's the second part. And I wanted to give you a small trigger warning. About 5 or 10 minutes into the second part of the podcast, I use the name Bruce Jenner instead of Caitlyn Jenner. I'm very sorry about this, and it won't happen again. However, at times, whenever I think of Caitlyn Jenner, I think of Bruce. Wonder why that is. I don't know. But anyways, guys, here's the second part of the video. If you want to ask me that question.
Yeah, I do have a question. We were talking about not only do you want people to be real with you, you also like people that allow you to be real. And the reason I bring that up is because of something that happened recently with your men's group. And tell me about how that went. What caused you to leave it?
Well, again, the guys that are in the men's group, they were, they're awesome guys. I love all of them. And, but there's a certain, again, I'm going to say this for that, trying to make anything sound mean, but they're kind of, I feel like a lot, not all of them, but I feel a lot of them are kind of taken by this current narrative in a lot of ways. They buy into whatever, bullshit is going on and is being kind of, forced in our throats in a lot of ways. But they, about a year ago, my wife had friends of myself and my wife, their kids had to come over because they had a death in the family.
Yeah.
And so they brought their kids over here, and which we were happy. I was happy to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
But the kids kind of started, it was just me, and I was looking after my 3, plus I was looking after these kids. And I was kind of, spread thin among, all the kids. And anyways, these kids started acting up quite a bit. I had one opening up and shut the garage door over and over again, even though I told her to stop that. It's not safe for her, and it could break the equipment. And I had one of the other kids climbing on the side of the pool that we have set up.
Yeah.
And then one of them was riding, even though I told them to ride, if you want to ride bikes, that's fine, but ride in the cul-de-sac. Don't in front of the house. Don't ride down the street where I can't see you. You're 8 or 9 or whatever years old, and I'm responsible for you. So don't take off where I can't see you. Well, there were numerous things going on like this. The boy that came over, he got mad and threw one of the computer mouse, the mouse with the computer, and broke it. And because he was mad because he was losing playing a video game. And, and there were numerous things that were going on. So I finally said, okay, you sit down here, you sit down there, knock it off. And, but anyways, when I told my men's group about this later that week, they were like, I had one tell me that, say something, I don't want to say exactly what he said because I don't remember, but something to the fact of, Eric, you got to remember that that victims of abusive people and can sometimes become abusers themselves. So you have to watch how you deal with kids. And it's like, number one, I wasn't abusing these kids in any way, shape,
Exactly.
or form. I was, I finally got upset because they're really kind of pushing the envelope, and they need somebody to tell them to knock it off, sit down. Like it, we have to, but again, these are the same kind of people that don't understand why things are going on the way they're going on in the world. It's like, maybe if you looked at our kids and said, hey, knock it off, maybe that's what we need to do. And
See,
it's
I'm blown away. Why would someone think that's abusive?
right. But that's what the guy said, or something along those lines. And then the other guy said, one of the other guys in the group said, everyone repeat after me. And everyone in the group listened, and he said, repeat after me. Get off my lawn. And, it's like you're minimizing what I'm saying to you guys. I'm saying to you guys that I went through. It was a long day. I had the kids from 7:45 in the morning
Hmm.
until 9 o'clock at night. That's how long I had the kids,
Right.
and or 8:30 at night, and I had the kids all day, and it was I was so frustrated by the end of the day. My that's why the rest of my beers are white. I mean, that's where I mean, it was so frustrating, and
Mhm.
and anyways, being a part of that men's group, it's like that was one of the things that we did was we checked in, and we told people, we told each other what was going on, and how we were feeling with things, and
It was to
how
be for support.
right. And that is one thing I enjoyed initially about the men's group was, but after that point, and a few other issues, I definitely felt like, okay, I can't be open about certain things. I can't be honest about certain things. And if I can't be open and I can't be honest, then why am I there? What is the point of me being there if I can't be open and honest?
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, also there was an inability or an unwillingness to understand your experiences from being raised in the South, like
Yep,
I have been, and your particular uh, reactions to certain
for sure.
situations
Yep.
that that they have no concept of living in the
It,
sheltered environment that they live in.
right. It's like we what actually the one guy who runs the group, I remember him saying at one point towards the beginning of the meetings for the group, so a couple of years ago, I remember him saying, um, we have a pretty diverse group in a way, and talking about, they're all white guys in the group, but we're all pretty diverse. And actually, I was kind of thinking to myself, well, yes and no. We're we all had to kind of say certain that, like, where we're from and that kind of stuff. But one thing that um I kind of felt was, yeah, we're diverse in certain ways as far as what kind of jobs we do or where we're from and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, you guys are very kind of liberal kind of guys from
Hmm.
the Northeast
Hmm.
section. And yeah, we have a construction person, and we have a whatever, and we have a school teacher, and we have we had definitely different occupations,
Hmm.
but within that group, and I don't want to get any more specific than that, but we 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 I'm the only guy from the South, and even though I've mostly voted Democrat, I am seen from a certain perspective, and I see things from a certain perspective. And like one thing that was said within the group that I started getting all into Stoicism, you know, the philosophy, and that was one thing I brought up in the group a couple times. Was I was reading a good book from Ryan Holiday on the lies of the Stoics, and they were, and the guy that was kind of running the group for a while, he said, um, um, yeah, Eric's probably, he meant it as a compliment, but I don't think he understood. In a lot of ways, it was a compliment, but it was also
a backhanded compliment.
Yep, yep. And he said to me, he said, Eric's probably the only guy in South Carolina driving around in his pickup truck listening to an Audible book on Stoicism. It's like, you don't understand. I know you're meaning it as a compliment, but what you're saying is all people in South Carolina are dumb. We're all a bunch of dumb hillbillies. And I'm the only one driving around with the intellectual capacity to understand a book on Stoicism. Yep. It's like that.
And also, I had the impression, because we had talked about this, so several times, that there was the PC police kind of were always in the background, and people don't realize that shuts down communication.
Yep.
There's nothing, censorship is censorship, and if you really want to be support, you can't start a bunch of PC policing. Because everybody in their thoughts are not going to be PC.
Right. And I think that for the most part is why, again, I love the group is, there's a certain element of that I felt nothing was said to me, but it's like, I felt like, okay, you're not buying into whatever hook, line, and sinker, and you feel something. Like one time I brought up just in passing in the group, I forgot why I brought it up, but I brought up that the fact of the back during when all the racial stuff was going on a couple of years ago, when the one officer in Atlanta shot a black man for pulling his taser off of him and pointing it at him. And it's like, and I brought that up, and it's like, you could definitely tell the everything shifted, the energy shifted in that group. They didn't want to talk about that. They want to do it's like, that where there is a different way of looking at things instead of just through the lens that you guys are looking at everything through.
Exactly.
And especially when you're living in that approximate area of the country
where it happened.
Where it's happening. It's like there are other sides to things. It's like, again, how is something a stereotype if it's true? If if people are committing crimes to 6 times the rate of violent crimes, a certain group of people, it's like, that's not, if you're looking at them and you're wondering, what are they doing? It doesn't mean you're racist. That means that you understand that they're committing these crimes at higher numbers. And it's a uncomfortable conversation to have. I think people are very uncomfortable saying, like, yeah, they're doing this,
Yeah,
and
it's like if a group of people are committing a lot of crimes, then they're going to have more interactions with the police.
right,
Hello,
yeah,
that's not
yep,
being, that's just being realistic. So you
yep,
need to take that into consideration when you discuss the issue.
yep. It's like, I think to like people like me and you, it's not really race. It's
Hmm.
not an issue of race because we know a lot of really great black people. But the fact of the matter is, we're just being honest with the fact that we don't dislike black people or think we're superior to black people. We're just saying that that is the real numbers, and we live in an area of the country where there are a lot of.
Can you see my children there?
Yes, it's too blurry. You
Those
got
are the
the
ones that, can you see them?
kinda.
Yeah, you know that I love black people, but I don't love all black people.
Right, right. I love white people, but I
I
don't
mean,
love all white people.
the girl, one of the girls that I raised was black. I love her just like my own daughter. It's not about race, it's about being realistic and dealing with facts. The fact that uh, uh, have my that my family, large part of my family is black, doesn't mean I have to put blinders on my eyes and not deal with reality. It's not fair to anybody, and you're never going to see. You're never going to find any solutions to anything if you can't start from facts.
Yep. If we're not going to deal with
And
with with
if you
things.
have to follow all of these PC guidelines, you might as well not start a discussion
Yep. Yep.
because so much of what you have to say, which is grounded in facts, cannot be said.
Yep.
So it's a
Yep.
waste of time to discuss issues with a lot of people.
Yep. It is. But I think if we're going to automatically shut down conversations, let's say let's say let's say that I was being racist. Let's
Mhm.
even say that I was being racist. And I guess according to them, their definition, I probably am racist. But
According to them, and
but
their
yeah, according to
definition.
them, because that's what their definition is moved from what conventional racism is, or what my definition would be. Um, like again, if are you a racist because you've been the victim of certain crimes at the hands, and if you've been the victim of certain crimes at the hands of black people, are you a racist because black
Right.
eyes catch your eye? And it's like, according to them, according to their definition, you are a racist. But it's like, we've got to deal with reality. Even if I was a card carrying KKK member, even if I was, why can't you talk to why can't you try to figure out what, hey, yeah, talk about what's going on in your life, talk about why you feel
Hmm.
the way you do. Obviously, if somebody's a card carrying racist, then there's something wrong with them. They've gone through something, there's something going on there. And why don't we allow each other to have that discussion? But of course, I'm not a racist or a
Oh, I know
card
you're not.
carrying, member,
Yeah,
but
the way I've
of
always,
anything.
like the way we discussed this before, I always thought racism meant that you believed a group of people was superior to some other group of people. And
Yeah,
I know you're not racist from that definition, but the way the PC crowd changes the definition day by day, anybody can be put in this category of racist. So
right.
it's like walking through a minefield. You really can't talk about it honestly.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. But yeah, and if we can't talk about things honestly, then
It's a waste of
like
time to
what?
talk about it.
You're right. It's a waste of time to be in that group because what ends up happening is you end up shutting yourself down and censoring what you say, and then when you go to talk about what's going on in your life, you censor it or you kind of rush through something just
Right.
to get it over with. And I found myself kind of sitting there thinking, man, I don't want to be here. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? And I don't feel good doing this. It's like beforehand, I felt great. I was energetic. I felt like, I got this to do, that to do. Tackle work. Do on whatever I have to do, and then I go to the group, and then I feel like afterwards, I was like, why do I do that to myself? And beforehand, back before things started, I would kind of like being in part of the group, and but yeah, there's definitely a particular mindset that they have, and if you don't fall into that, they don't. Like the guy who runs the group, they don't say it's not like something was said to me, but definitely kind of a oddness about there was kind of a almost a stoic way that he would deal with me after that, almost like, okay, you done, okay, let's move on to the next guy. It's like, we're and it's like, during that time period, my father started having some issues.
No,
And I'm not going to go into that, but he started having a few issues. And I said to the group, I said, hey, my dad's going through this, and it's kind of been difficult to, him going through this operation or that operation. And, and except for one guy who I'm still friends with and talk with a lot from the group, except for him, nobody said anything. Nobody. Not once. I can recall said a thing to me. Like,
isn't
yeah,
that
shit,
sad?
man. Yeah,
That's
it
so
is.
sad.
And I think that was one thing I noticed because another guy at the group, his father-in-law was going through issues. His father-in-law. And everyone was, oh man, how's this going? How's that going? How's this going? Now one person, except for that one guy,
But all of your
asked me.
feelings were invalidated.
Right. And, I'm like, and this is why we cannot be effective. To get back to the original point that you were making, we cannot be effective. We confuse kids because we're not being honest with ourselves.
Right.
If we can't be honest with ourselves, we confuse the kids.
Exactly.
And
another thing I wanted to bring up while we're having this conversation, talking about confusing kids. What do you think about transgender women being part of the feminist movement? And do you think that does it make sense to you that a biological man can now have the same treatment as a woman born female?
yeah,
Don't you think that's confusing to kids?
Yeah, I think it's confusing to kids, and I think it's confusing to adults.
I
mean,
too.
The thing is, it's like a transgender woman is a man. I mean, I'm sorry, it's like, Bruce Jenner. Bruce Jenner is a great person, but Bruce Jenner is a male, a biological male. It's like, we've gotten to a point to where, again, kind of like that Leah Thomas or whatever,
Yeah, yeah. The
yeah,
swimmer.
it's like we have gotten to a point to where we are so politically correct that
Hmm.
we're letting our women, our girls, swim against guys that are half a foot plus taller than them,
Hmm.
built like, you know, a linebacker, and then we all sit back and wonder why she went from number 400 in men's to
Hmm.
number one in women's, and we're wondering why, and we don't quite understand why. Like, could it be she is a he? And it's like,
Right. And I mean, it's so unfair to the girls and
yeah,
the young women. I mean, it's, to a lot of these young women have worked for years to get where they are.
yep. And they worked years trying to shave fractions of a
Without
second
ever
off of
having the
them.
possibility of having the bone structure of a biological male
Right.
and the muscle mass. I
Yep.
mean, it's such an unfair advantage that it's like, well, why would we spend the time to help women achieve, uh, you know, success in sports if we're going to put them in with men?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like that we can't deny that there are certain advantages to being male. I mean, I'm a 45-year-old middle-aged man,
Hmm.
and but I am no Olympic athlete or anything else, or and but I do lift weights, not as often as I should, but I do lift sometimes. So it's like if I go into the where I have the workout stuff and lay down, I on the bench, I'm going to bench press a lot more than almost any woman, especially in my age group. But period. Like it's like most women cannot bench press 300 pounds. I mean, they're
Hmm.
not going to be able to. And it's like, well, there are these women that did at this level of competition, they bench press 400 or 500 or whatever. And it's like, yeah, have you? First of all, these women are 25 years old, and have you looked at them? They're on so much testosterone, they got a freaking Adam's apple. Well, like, so there is a biological advantage to being male. If we aren't going to be honest about that,
Yeah, and it just seem insane that in
yep,
a weightlifting competition, you know,
yep,
some man comes out that looks like a German tank,
right,
okay, and wins the competition. What is the point of the competition?
yep,
It's not a woman's competition. You
yep,
got a man in there lifting the weights.
yep, yep,
I mean, I can't magically just sit here and say, I'm really a Martian.
right,
And you
yep,
need to accept that, young man.
yep. And if you
Because
don't accept it, you're bigoted.
right. In other words, I'm saying you have to enter into my delusion
Right.
and play along with me. And of course, if I'm a Martian, I probably am going to be able to do. You think I can do all these Martian things? Well, if I tell you I can, I can.
Right. It's like we have gone so far down this road. So to kind of get back to the question you asked, like trans women, getting. I think you asked something about. I don't know if you want to re-breach your question, but you asked something about. What do I think about transgender women joining the feminist movement? And getting involved with things that were mostly female. And I think also in a way, it's doing even damage, even not a way of not talking about sports, but I think it's doing damage in a way of like they're kind of joining force with the feminist kind of toxic masculinity and whatever kind of BS. They're kind of joining forces with that, and they're more concerned, at least from my perspective, they're more concerned with saying people are toxic if they're doing things like what you and I are doing, which is talking about things in a way,
Right.
in an open forum, and they're they're joining that conversation, and they're saying, they're kind of putting rules out there that we need to say certain pronouns, and we have to accept them in bathrooms, in certain bathrooms or whatever. It's like, I don't want, I mean, call me bigoted, but I don't want a big old guy with the dress on next to my daughter in the stall.
Of course not.
I,
And
I
you
don't
know,
think
they're
that's appropriate.
they're telling us that their definition of reality usurps reality,
Right.
and that we're supposed to enter into this delusion and pretend it's real, and it's not real.
And if we
And
don't,
it's
we're bigoted.
important that we deal with reality. You know, I never thought I'd come to the day where, uh, in order to be accepted, you have to toss reality out the window. Uh, you know, I don't understand this. I have, I feel like transgender adults, transgender children should be loved and accepted,
Yep.
but I don't feel like that they should be able to redefine reality for the rest of everyone, for everyone else.
Right.
That's kind of going too far for a small minority.
Yep.
I don't understand how society has come to this point. Maybe it's just that I'm too old, but
Yeah. I don't think so,
wow,
buddy.
wow, we've come a long way from when I was young. I mean,
Yeah.
wow, out there. Well, tell me this: what do you think of sexism today, and how do you define sexism? And do you see it as an important issue in today's world?
You know, I see sexism in a way of like, yeah, do I think I think the conventional way that we think of sexism is a bunch, at least in my mind, it's a bunch of older, probably white men sitting around the boardroom table, um, stopping young girls from becoming something. That's the way that I see that definition. And I'm not saying there's not cases of that. I'm not saying there's not. But I think to a large degree, we're not dealing, that's not what sexism is nowadays. I think sexism is like, like this whole thing of women wanting the same wages as men. It's like the data shows that you are getting the same, women are getting the same wages men are getting, but
For
they're
the
just
same,
not choosing the same
for the
for the
same
same
jobs.
jobs. They're just not choosing the same jobs. They're not choosing the same areas. And it's like, but we want to, it's like there aren't many women going for engineering degrees.
Mm-hmm,
There are more women that go over social sciences and
mm-hmm.
teaching and
And
nursing
caring
and
professions.
yeah, right. And it's like those professions, it's like they pay a certain amount of money, whether you're male or female. They
Right.
pay a certain amount of money. If you work if you teach and you teach, here in town, you have the same pay or similar pay structure. It depends on experience or whatever, But you know, working for the government, you work for the government too. Your job title, you get it's a certain pay range within that job title. You know, I'm sure when you were working, you know, and you worked for the government too, you worked and you had a certain your job title entitled you to a certain pay range.
And you know, when I
And
worked as a translator all of those years, which was predominantly women who were my coworkers,
right,
uh, I wasn't getting paid any more than they were for the amount of work I was doing. It
right,
was a level playing field. It,
right.
you know, the women were being paid at the same rate I was being paid as a translator.
Yep, yep. They were being paid the same way you were.
Hmm.
And the thing is, we have gotten to a point to where, like now, it's like, well, there's not enough women engineers, or there's not enough. So we have to, even though women represent a small number of people with engineering degrees,
Hmm.
we have got to find and open up half of these jobs that we're going to fill
Yeah,
for
see,
women.
here's the problem I have, Eric, is we have gone from equality before the law to there should be no differences between men and women. Well, that's just not true.
Right,
Here again, we're not dealing with reality. A lot of what we're talking about as this wage gap is based on there's a difference between men and women. And women aren't, like you said, women aren't choosing to go into a lot of these fields. Now,
right.
maybe we should value female dominant careers more. Now, that's something that we should discuss. But I think that there are differences that we can't just wave a magic wand and make it go away. I feel like that what what's practical is equality before the law, not equality of results, because there are differences. And you're not
Yep,
going to get the same results from groups that are different.
yep. But also, women, from what I've read, they choose jobs that are more based around family. Like they want more flex time. They want more like teaching. They're off in the summer. You know
Hmm.
that there's they want more flex time. They want more family time, and they're not going after these the same kind of jobs that are more so yeah, we can discuss, you know, female focused jobs and what to make less and that kind of stuff, but also we have to understand that women choose to like women I forgot where I was reading this, but women's I was reading an article where they were talking about women lawyers. Like they go headlong into becoming professional attorneys, and then when they reach a certain age, there's like a 35 or whatever. There's like, oh geez, well I got a 32, 33. I gotta, my clock's ticking in a way. I gotta,
Yeah.
and then if they have families, they get married and they have families. What are they choosing to do more than men? Staying at home or staying at
Right.
home, working 30 hours a week. So, how can we take, um, how can we compare a woman working at the firm for 30 hours a week opposed to a man who's
Hmm.
working at the firm in New York City, working 80 hours a week and no wife, no kids. That is his life.
Hmm.
And
And
I
he's
think
given up a lot for that, and
right.
probably very poor
And
as
yep,
inside.
yep,
You know, I
yep.
feel like that lots of times women make career choices that are more fulfilling to them
Person.
as a family member. that often men don't make. And I feel like that often men are deprived and live poorer lives spiritually than the woman does, who has not set financial success as her main objective. I have, before we end this conversation, I have an important question to ask you.
Shoot.
Are you a man?
I think so, Curtis.
Well, what makes you think you're a man?
Well, I think in part, I'm not totally convinced, but I think in part the hairy chest, the well, and I got to be honest, the genitalia, kind of tipped me off, and I
Oh,
could be wrong about that. I
well,
could
how do you
be.
describe a man, young man?
Well, I describe a male as a man, as an adult male, and the same thing as you and I would describe a female as an adult female, as an adult woman, and I know that this is going to sound crass, but we our dicks kind of give us away,
Well,
and for the most
that's
part.
part of the problem, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's part of the issue, and I think
Oh my.
that you know when guys want to be a woman and dress in women's clothes and walk around in women's locker rooms with Willie hanging out, that's kind of what gives us away.
I
That's
think
kind
so
of what
too. That's a clue.
that's a
That's a clue. That helps
that
us come to some conclusion. Well, do you think men are treated fairly in our society today?
I no I don't, and I think I don't want to say the men are treated in all ways unfairly,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to say the men are they're not valued the way that we used to value men, and
Mm-hmm.
their contributions to things like what I feel is going on in a lot of ways is we attack men for being men, and we attack men for certain things that men do that are wrong or
Mm-hmm.
toxic, and there are things that men do that are toxic, but we only look at that side of things. We only look at men from that lens, that box. We put them in a box and we say, "This is what you are," and it's like we're not dealing with all of masculinity. It's like if we were, why can't we be honest with the fact that men have given us most of these great inventions
Mm-hmm.
and most of these I'm gonna catch I'm sure a hell of a lot of backlash for saying this, but men invented a lot of majority of the things that we take for granted in our lives today. And it's like we don't value that. It's almost like if we didn't value women because we looked at women as being nagging kind of people that passive aggressive, like if we took the worst part of women, the toxic traits of
You would have
of
toxic femininity.
right. If we took those toxic traits and we focused just on
On
those,
those.
and I think that's what we're doing to men. And I
Well,
think that's go ahead.
when I was young, I often had the impression it was during the Vietnam
Right.
that the message that was being sent to young men is that men are expendable.
Yeah.
Young men were being used as cannon fodder. You
Yep.
know, so there were a lot of disadvantages to being a man during that period, and
Right.
there still are disadvantages. So I feel like that women are treated unfairly in certain instances, and so are men. But I feel like that at this point, men are being told. I feel like the message that's being sent to men is contradictory.
Right.
It's something that no human being could live up to.
Yep.
And once again, we're denying basic biological facts.
Right.
And we need, like we discussed before, we need to deal with the reality of the differences between men and women and try to deal with those in the most positive way possible.
Yep.
And not try to imagine that we're all the same, because we're not, and we're never going to be.
Yep. And I think that's the big thing right there. You hit the nail on the head with that is we're not, men and women aren't the same. I mean, we have certain things are the same. Obviously we're human. We bleed red. But there's also parts of us that are different, and we go after different things. We value different things, and we we can't focus. And we had negative traits. Men had negative traits, and women had negative traits, and we can't focus on one specific area. Like the people say all the time that women are men commit most of the violent crimes and most of the murders and they do, but men are also the victims of those crimes for the most part. And it's like men kill other men majority of the time. They don't kill women, they kill men. And so we do commit these crimes, but we are victims of these crimes. And
But the thing that we forget is that most men don't do any of that.
no, it's a small grouping of men
Who
that
do that?
committed these crimes. It's just like there's a small grouping of men at the very top who make the majority of money in the world that
Exactly.
own.
Exactly.
It's a very
So all
small.
men don't have privilege.
Right. It's a very small amount of men that are up there. As a matter of fact, there's a much larger group of poor and homeless men, much greater at the bottom. As a matter of fact, there are more homeless and poor men than there are women.
Exactly.
There are more. So um, it's like if people want equality and they want equality of outcome, well, you you got to take the good with the bad. I mean, okay, there are a certain number of men that make over $500,000 a year. Okay, we're going to put the exact number of women up there that make that much, but we're also going to put the exact number of women down there that get murdered as men, or we're
And
going
who
to put the
sleep on the
exact number.
streets.
Yep, that's sleep in the street. We can't just take the A class. You got to be willing to be, if you want equality and equality of outcome, you got to be willing to be in the A class and the D class.
That's
You got to
exactly
be
right.
willing to get the
Nobody wants
top.
to talk about that.
Right. You got to be willing to be in the top and be willing to be in the bottom, because that's where men are in a
Right.
lot of ways. There are more men at the very, very top, and there are more men at the very
And there's
bottom.
more men that are absolutely powerless
Right.
in our society
Yep.
than
Yep.
than than women.
Yep. I mean, and I think that's the fact we don't want to do it, and we want to kind of breed this
We don't
victim.
we don't want to have critical thinking.
Yep. And
We
and
want
again,
everything to be simplistic and black and white, and that's not how reality is.
right. Again, if we don't have this critical thinking, and we're not like, we're not, we're all, dividing each other up in a class of victim, and blaming this group or blaming that group. We are not, first of all, we're not in control of our own lives. We've given our power away. And who is profiting off of that, number one. And number two,
at the top.
right. And number two, it's like, if we divide everyone up and we start, making this illegal and making that illegal, and dividing people up into groups and class and everything else, we're much easier to control. And we got to be honest with ourselves. There is something going on there, at least from my perspective. It's like there is something going on. There is something, we, lockdowns and everything else, and you got to have this shot and that shot and whatever. And if you don't, you're and we don't even have to please you. We can have your peers please you. We can have your peers kind of, and that to me is what's going on. Don't like guns.
I agree wholeheartedly.
It's like, you don't like guns? Okay, don't like guns. No, but you don't want other people to have guns too. It's like, and then you police them. You try to get them taken away from them. You vote against their rights to have their guns. It's like, you're turning what is going on into people don't understand. They're being suckered.
They're being manipulated.
Yep. It's like, and I think both of us are kind of on the same page with this. Like, there is something going on here, guys. And it's like, and everyone's being divided up into groups and class and gender.
That's one of the most dangerous things. And this always happens in totalitarian structures.
Yep. It's like, and it's like nobody wants to. Certain people, especially on the left, don't want to see this. They don't want to see that. It's like, all you got to do is
they're supporting it,
right? Because
they don't realize they're marching themselves right into the trap.
Because it makes them feel safe. It makes them feel safe.
They're going to be the most unsafe.
Yep. I agree.
Ultimate victims. It's so sad to sit back and see this.
They can live in the middle.
You and I both have been very firm supporters of gay rights.
Yep.
But it's sad to see people to reduce their identity to that.
Yep.
People are so much more than their sexual orientation.
Right.
And they don't realize they're being used to fracture society so that these people that are at the top who are manipulating us can keep the power. They don't realize that they're just being pawns in a game.
Yeah.
And that goes for other groups.
Yep.
And it's sad to sit back and see. Maybe the next time we can talk, more about these people that are up at the top manipulating us.
That sounds really good. We need to set something up for sooner so we can do it again.
Yeah, listen, I've had a wonderful time, and I love you so much, buddy.
I love you too, my friend. I love you too.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.